So we ended up talking all night with these guys and the friends, and they were like, oh, this is AJ Allmendinger. He's full of crap. He's not a professional bowler. Like, he told us, hey, we're professional bowlers. He's actually going to drive in the Indy 500. And I looked at him and I was like, wow, you have a really cool last name. I've never heard of you. Tell me more about this like racing you do. I love cars. And that's literally where we started.
Welcome to Believe in the Good with Haley Dillon, the podcast where we go beyond the track and into the lives of NASCAR wives, families, and the incredible community that keeps this sport moving. I'm your host, Haley Dillon, and here we're all about the stories that fuel us, the highs, the lows, the grit, the grace, and the goodness we find along the way. So buckle up, because we're diving into real conversations, behind-the-scenes moments, and the kind of inspiration that reminds us, no matter what, there's always good to be found. So let's hit the gas and let's get into it. So Tara, so fun to have you on. You are married to AJ Allmendinger. It's kind of fun that Ty and AJ are teammates this year. So Ty hasn't had teammates very often. He's had teammates a couple times. And so I'm like, what is that like? And he's just like, it's kind of awesome. Like, I never really knew AJ before this, but he's been really great. And I'm just really grateful for that. So that's fun. And, you and I have always liked to talk to each other. And I don't know if you get this, but I very often get where people are like, oh, I thought you were Tara. And I'm like, thank you. Like, people will mistake. I mean, do you ever get mistaken for me? Because
but I think it's going to happen now that they're teammates. Like, I really feel, because we do.
Yes.
Like, I think if we were just like, like say 100 feet off or whatever, you might not know if we weren't in context. And I get that sort of confused with like some other people too. Like, in the past, people thought I was like Delana Harvick, and I'm like, I don't feel like I even look like her. But I guess if we're out of context, you just see a blonde haired kind of ish girl, you just assume that it's something. And I get mistaken for Whitney a lot, and Whitney has since dyed her hair, so I think that's going to stop. But I did at Darlington have someone come to me like, hey, Whitney, can you sign this? And I was just like,
oh yeah, you're like, I'll sign it, but
like, I'm not Whitney. But so I've had it a few times, but I think it is going to happen to us quite a bit this year.
I know. I think that's so funny. I know now that she's dyed her hair, probably. But like you say, I have had people think that I was you, and I'm like, I see it. Okay. It's just so funny.
I like that. Well,
yeah. So tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about where you grew up and where you kind of got involved with this racing world. How did you and AJ meet? Like, tell me a little bit about your upbringing and, then how you and AJ got together.
Thank you for that question. I like when we get to share this, because people do just see our husbands, and I can see that people Google me quite a bit. Like, I don't know if you've ever like seen your name and you're like, wow, people are interested in me. And I started doing pageants. I wanted to do that as a kid always. And it just didn't work out for a lot of different reasons. Background, mostly because I grew up in Nebraska. My whole family is still in Nebraska, but pageantry just wasn't a big thing then. And growing up, I showed sheep in the 4-H fair and chickens, and we lived on an acreage, and I had 2 other siblings, and my dad worked shift work, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so we just didn't really have like the time or resources to be doing pageants at that time, and school was the main focus. And so when I started doing pageants, I kind of wanted to put my story out there and wanted to put an identity to myself for all of these people that I now had looking at me, and, whether that was good or bad. But I think if you don't give them the narrative, things can go really bad. And it was really interesting when AJ and I first started dating. Yeah. And it just was like,
create what they want to out of nothing, which is, I think for some context, sometimes less is more. But I also think like you sharing your life and your pageants, which was the next thing I was definitely going to ask you. But yeah, keep going, because it is so cool that you've gotten involved in pageants and everything. But your upbringing, I didn't know that you were kind of a 4-H girl. That's so fun. So cool.
So country girl. I went to a really small school called Fort Calhoun. Hello to everyone in Fort Calhoun. My class was 53 people, and I went to school from like kindergarten to high school with at least 13 to 15 of us, and then we went on to university together. So I'm from a
Wow.
place where like everybody knows everything, knows everything. People probably know too much about me. Like maybe it was a good thing I left. I don't know. But I love where I'm from. It is a very small town, small place, but people are very like loving and warm. And when I moved to North Carolina, I felt that same warmth and kind of almost small town feel here, even though it's growing. And moving from
Yeah.
Nebraska to North Carolina wasn't a super shock to me because I feel like everybody's from somewhere else, but also I kind of feel like I moved to a small town. We're here in Denver, North Carolina, which is around Lake Norman, but it has like a really small town feel. So to me, I
Yeah.
really appreciate that because I come from a small town that not anyone really has even heard of in Nebraska, it seems like. But yeah, I'm a Nebraska girl. I went to the University of Nebraska, go Cornhuskers, like born, raised. It is the biggest thing. You know, AJ's now this like football fan with me and a huge
Oh,
Husker
that's
fan.
so
He
cool.
didn't go to college. And my whole life, I loved architecture and wanted to study architecture. So I have a master's degree in architecture from the University of
Oh
Nebraska.
my
I
gosh.
was
I
the
did not
highest
know that.
graduate. I wanted to just beat the boys and really loved that. And
Wow.
then I have practiced a bit, mostly in aquatic consulting, which is like the commercial side to pools. And it seems simple, but once I got into this, it was incredibly interesting and intricate.
Wow.
And I was doing a lot of things in North Carolina that very few people were able to do. And I was able to engineer the pool. And then I was the one working with the architects, the engineers, the permitting to get this square hole in the ground permitted. And it was
Yeah.
really complicated and complex. I loved it, but it was really difficult. And then with AJ being full-time in racing, it was just really hard to like try to do the career thing, try to be the type A
Yeah.
person that I am, clean the house and do all the things, and then still be flexible enough for AJ to be like, hey, let's go do something. And I'm like, well, I can't because you work on the weekend, I work in the week. And it just doesn't
Yeah.
work out, you know? So I have those tools, those skills, and I'm finding ways
Yeah.
to use them, whether that's a side hustle. I love to create graphics and content. And again, like being in pageantry kind of gives me like little projects to do that are creative and sort of
Yeah.
mimic what I did in architecture because you're always doing pinups and you're always refining and trying to make it better. So I kind of feel like, well, I'll become that until I can do this again. But so that's just kind of me in a nutshell. And then right after I finished my master's in 2013, I went to Indianapolis with my sister because she is 2 years under me. So she was finished her bachelor's and was going to go to the University of Indiana. And we had never gone. We needed to go visit her school. So we both wrapped up our degrees, jumped in the
Yeah.
car, and we went to Indiana. And we stayed in Indianapolis, wanted to see the architecture. And then we would go to Bloomington where she was going to go. So we didn't look at what was going on in Indianapolis. And we get there and we see all these signs for the Indianapolis 500. And we're like, no
Yeah.
wonder we couldn't get a hotel room. And that La Quinta was like $200. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So we did no research. We just showed up to Indy and here's this like massive race going on. And we just happened to
Right.
walk around one night. And that is when I met AJ. We went for a walk. Like we weren't feeling good. We went to bed. We got up. We're like, let's just go walk around Indianapolis. It doesn't get dark till like 10 o'clock. And we went on the
Yeah.
most innocent walk. And on our last leg back, we go by this bar that has an outdoor kind of patio because everybody does. It's the Indy 500. And it's called the Wild Beaver. And AJ with 8 of his like teammates were out there and we're just kind of walking by and they're like, hey, you should come stop and have a drink with us. And I'm like, I'm going to bed. I don't drink. You know, I'm like done. And my sister kind of was like, she kind of turned around. Then AJ asked us where we were from to get us to stop longer. We were like, Nebraska. And he yells, well, we're professional bowlers. You should come hang out with us. And his
Is
voice,
bowling like a big thing in Nebraska? Like,
yes,
why
and
would that be
I was
his tag?
yeah, he somehow knew that the University of Nebraska, like women's especially, but even the men's team, they're always national champs in bowling. And like I went there and didn't know that, but he did. And
What
just
a random
threw it
little
out.
tidbit to like throw out there.
Throw out. I mean, I was ready to go back. The meeting was like 11:30. Like I was heading to bed. I was like, let's go. And you know, kind of talk to him. He's got this commanding voice, and I think that's the thing that sticks in my head. Like, what did you hear or feel
Yeah.
or see first? But it's definitely his voice, and I think that's what pulled me in to be like, what an interesting person or character. And he's kind of funny and weird and different. Like you just kind of get,
Yeah.
you know, sucked into what his character was. So we ended up talking all night with these guys and the friends, and they were like, oh, this is AJ Allmendinger. You know, he's full of crap. He's not a professional bowler. Like, he told us, hey, we're professional bowlers. Like, he's actually going to drive in the Indy 500. And I looked at him and I was like, wow, you have a really cool last name. I've never heard of you. Like, tell me more about this, like, racing you do. I love cars. And that's literally where we
Yeah.
started. And, you know, I'm
Oh
really
my
strong in my
gosh.
faith. And I had asked him, because I was kind of at that point where I just graduated. I was ready to do my own thing. And so I really wasn't looking for anything. So I like boldly was just like, well, how do you feel about, you know, what is your stance on God and Jesus in your faith? Like, just threw that out there within like, I mean, 20 minutes of talking to him. And I'll never forget this. He was like, when I'm in the car, I'm going 200, 220 miles an hour, and I feel like I'm with God. I feel like Jesus is right there with me. And he goes, and if I make one
Wow.
wrong turn, I'm going to be with Jesus. And I went, well, good enough for me.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh, I love that. Yeah.
I've never forgot that. That still gives me chills, even when he's in the stock car, because they're so much more protected than they are in the open car and the open wheel. Everybody wants him
Yes.
to do the double. And I will tell you right now, he's not doing the double because I say no. I'm sorry, but it will never
Yeah.
happen. Like, he's not getting back in one of those. We're done, you know? So the roof on the head is great.
Yeah.
Not going back to Indy, we'll never do the double. I'm sorry. But that's where it all started, you know, and he said that
Yeah.
it's very true. You will be with Jesus. So that's where our whole
Yeah.
relationship really started, was that night. We went to one last bar, and, you know, it was 2:00, everything's shutting down. So it was time to go. And he goes, Roger Penske says, I need a hot date to this banquet I'm going to, and you should come with me. And I still kind of thought he was full of crap. Like, I was just like, you've been
Yeah.
drinking, I've been drinking water, I'm super sober. You know, I've been through that. I get how this goes. Like, I'm going back to my
Yeah.
hotel room. And he was like, okay, well, give me your number. I'll call you in the morning. And I was like, okay, if you remember me, you call me. And he just gave me a kiss on the
Yeah.
cheek, and we went back to our hotel. And I thought that would be the end. I thought, oh, it was so neat. I met him. He was great. I'll watch it with my dad. It'll be something we get to do together. And it'll just be somebody I knew and met and thought, wow, really cool, you know? And that was going to be the end. Like, I was just
Totally.
at peace with walking away. And at 8 a.m. in the morning, he is calling me. And I pick up and I'm like, are you serious?
Oh
Like,
my
hello.
gosh.
He's like, you and your sister, you got to come to the track today. It's carb day, which is community day. Everybody comes. I'm like, okay. So we decide not to go to Bloomington that day. We go the next day. We get in the car. We drive into Indy. And I'm just like, this is amazing. And we see the Corvette Club. And I could have stopped there. I was like, cool. The Corvette Club. Look at
Yeah.
this car. And we get in. And then I see AJ, and I finally go, oh my God, he's not lying, because his face is on a flight and he's signing autographs. And I'm just like, you are this person. And people are,
Oh, you're kind of a big deal here.
and I'm laughing because I just kind of think he's the scoop. And I'm like, okay, you know. So it wasn't that I came into it knowing who he was and was a fan. I was somebody that was like, you're full of crap. Like, really show me more. And I think that intrigued
Yeah.
him. So we
Yeah.
showed me around. We did the whole thing. Met his parents, you know, but it was just two people meeting each other. My sister was there. Like, we was having a good time. Showing people that had never seen this something is kind of interesting when you show someone something that you've seen a bunch that they haven't. It's neat to see it.
Yeah.
So I did that whole thing. But my sister and I, we were supposed to leave and go back to Nebraska. We were both under 25 at that time, and those rental cars are very expensive when you're under 25. So
Yeah.
we had to go. We had to leave. And he's like, well, let's just stay for the race and whatever. I'm like, no, we got to go. My dad is expecting us. We had an 11-hour drive. I'm not letting her do it alone. Goodbye, you know. But we had speed dated at this hotel right before I left, and was just, we like went through everything we just wanted in life. And I'm like, why does this feel easy? I don't know you. You know, you're really a stranger.
Yeah.
But it felt like I'd known him my whole life. I felt like I got struck by lightning and couldn't figure it out, because I was still in this hard-headed mode, like doing my own thing right now. Like, I don't have to go to school right now. I can just do what I want. I don't need a boyfriend. I just want to be myself. So I was kind of fighting it in a way to be like, this is nothing, but I could not get away from like, why do I feel like this? I've never felt like
Yeah.
this. So we drive back, and the whole time he's texting me and calling me, and he's like, I'm going to fly you back. I'm like, what? So I get home, I talk to my dad, and he's like, I think you better go. And I'm like, okay. Okay. So drive back, fly, do all the whole thing, get back there. And the next day I'm in the parade, the Indy parade. It's the second most televised parade in the country. I did not know this, behind Macy's. And
Oh,
people are blowing
wow.
up my phone like, Tara, are you in Indy? And I did not talk to anybody. I didn't know where I was. I met all these drivers. I talked to all these people. I went to the Penske banquet and I mean, everybody goes to that Penske banquet. I met the Verizon people. I met Hitachi. I met everybody because he had to go do things. And in Nebraska, you talk to
Yeah.
everybody. It's called Nebraska Nice.
Right. You're not
Everybody.
shy. You're like
No,
you're like me. Never met a stranger in your life.
never.
What do we say? The gift of
Gift of
gab.
gab. Yes. And I will talk to you about anything. So the next day we get to
Yeah.
this race and everyone is coming in, shaking my hand, telling me, oh, good luck to AJ. And his parents' jaw is literally on the floor because they're like, do you know everyone? And Roger Penske comes in with his family and he across the paddock is like, Tara, hey. And I'm like, hey guys. And everyone is just looking at me like, who is this person? And it was just, everyone had acted like we'd known each other our whole life, but we literally only known each other for like 48 hours at that point. And we have been together ever since we met May 22nd, 2013. And like, it has been history. And now we're like 12 years later.
Yes.
So that's
Oh
a
my
long version,
gosh.
but you have to hear the story because it is just too
Yeah.
good.
No, it's that's what I want to hear. I never have heard your story of how you guys met, and that is so cool and such a God thing, right? Like
Yes.
you're saying how it's like, wow, every bit of this just feels like it's supposed to happen, and you're like, what am I doing? And just sort of like I was talking to a friend yesterday about that just sort of that concept of like putting one foot in front of the other because you're just like so being led by God in that way where you're like, this is beyond me. Like, yeah, I like him and everything, but this is so not my plan. You know, we make these plans for our lives. And then it's very similar to how Ty and I got together. It's just like, it was so God, you know? So that is really cool. I never have heard that story. I'm so grateful for you to tell it. That's just what a unique situation. So you were like thrust in, but before that, you just had like this cute little encounter with it. I mean, that's just so fun. So
So
you
simple, so
were saying,
innocent.
yeah, so you were saying before you guys had met, you were going to school and got your master's, did all of this stuff. So where did it come in? You didn't want to do, you wanted to do pageants, but it wasn't really a big thing. So where did it come in that you started to do pageants, and how many have you done now?
Oh, well, thank you. So as a kid, I always wanted to do one because my mom, she's a tomboy, but she also really liked to sew and she loved fashion. And I would watch these fashion shows with her on this little black and white TV we would have in our kitchen. And she'd watch them. And then we always made sure to watch the pageant. Like she just would watch it because it was always on ABC. Like it was televised more. And I just
Yep.
remember watching this with her and having almost mixed feelings as a kid. Like, am I going to be good enough to do that one day? I'd like to try to do that. And then I went through my childhood with a lot of food allergies. Like I have celiac disease, I have lactose intolerant, I
Oh,
cannot
wow.
have cane sugar, lemon does not like, there's a whole list of things that it took 27 years to figure out. Like always bloated, my skin was always bad. I always had a lot of brain fog. So I always
Wow.
fought that and fought wondering if I would ever look or feel like those girls on stage. Like, could I ever be something like that? Because inside I felt so icky and terrible. And sometimes you just feel fat and yucky because your stomach and your body. And then when your stomach's a mess, your brain is a mess. And I went through my whole childhood like that, my teens and into my 20s through college like that. Always fighting with this idea of, I want to do this pageant, but I just don't think I'll ever be able to. I don't feel good. I'm not that girl. I don't have talent. I don't know if I could do anything on stage. And it was almost like this sword always in my side. But I love talking about fashion and things with my mom. And I always just remember kind of watching those moments with her. Well, in 2010, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so was my grandfather, her dad. And they both, it went fast. Like he was diagnosed with stage 3. And then months later, all of a sudden, she was diagnosed with stage 4. And it sent my family into this whole thing where we
Wow.
were genetic tested and we were trying to figure out like, where did this come from all of a sudden. And she lasted 10 months, but she died May 30th, 2011. So 2 years before AJ and I met. And it was just
Oh,
shocking
wow.
because she was so healthy, so, vibrant with life. Everyone knew her in the community. She always was at our school or she was in the PTA. She was a phenomenal person. And so I just felt like well, I want to be like her, but do you
Yeah.
think you grow up in your mom, you didn't want to be just like your mom? But I'm definitely become my mom in every way, from the
Oh, that's
stay-at-home
really
mom
cool.
aspect to raising my son to being a community, just kind of advocate and just someone who's just
Yeah.
interested in his heart. Like that was who my mom was. And I think, marrying AJ, I thought maybe my chances to do a pageant were gone. And then I realized that there's this whole world of Mrs. Pageantry. And then I kind of realized
Yeah.
why God was like, no to Miss Pageantry, but yes to Mrs. And now I'm able to share my story, share my background. I have things to talk about, things I've struggled about, and really makes me me and what's my why and why I'm so passionate about different things. Like I like to talk about the river keeper and cleaning up the river and talking about things in our food, because not only have I struggled, but now I've watched my mom, who was incredibly healthy and athletic. She was the ultimate warrior woman, go down for something, and it didn't make any sense. So I really love talking about, our health and making America healthy again. I don't think I ever was like, I'm Democrat or Republican, but now I do feel
Yeah.
like it's personal now. And I want those things, not just for my health,
Yeah.
but pancreatic cancer is on the rise. And so is our autoimmune and all these different things that are just frustrating. And for me, my mom passed away in our home, our childhood home, always lived there. But, when
Wow.
you go through that and you see your dad widowed and your sister and your brother, you're like, something's not right here, And I think
Yeah.
that's the deep passion where I'm like, I gotta say something. I gotta figure out how to tell people about this,
Yeah.
that this is important, because I do carry it really deep in my soul, but it's taken a while to figure out how to say it so that you're just not, you can hear it in my voice now, but you're not a sobbing mess that you can't articulate yourself. And for me,
Mhm.
pushing myself to do a pageant, I have to articulate myself. You got to put it together like a post race.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love watching the post race interviews, or when they get a microphone shoved in their face, because they don't even know how structured they are and how well they do it. But
I
every one
know.
of them, I love watching them. AJ's so good at it. Ty's so good at it. They are all
Mhm.
so good at it. Even the little young ones. I love watching the ARCA guys, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, if they're 12 and they can, 12 to 16, and they're really articulate. And I think this
Mhm.
sport has pushed me to want to be able to be like, boom, 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 boom. Here's what it is. Instead of so female and drawn out and emotional, I really
Mhm.
do want to get down to that core, because we zipped my mom up in a body bag, and that
Yeah.
sticks with me. And I'm like, damn, I got a story. I want to tell people, I want to reach people, but that you're a real human being, and even though you're in the spotlight and your husband is the NASCAR driver and your life must seem perfect and
Yeah.
amazing, you must have no worries at all. You can
Yeah.
still be so happy and on the right path, but you can still feel so much, and you can be sad, but that can push you. But just to
Yeah.
be, a real person, and that people in the NASCAR world, or just anybody out there listening, knows that we're real people and we're real humans, even though you see us on TV and it looks like we could never care less about anything else. It's like we definitely do. And I know you do. I
So
know
true.
so many of us do. Yes.
So true. Such a beautiful, oh my gosh, what a breath of fresh air you are. I'm so sorry you lost your mom and your grandfather. And so that's become something obviously you're extremely passionate about. You are so articulate. You are such a smart woman that carries herself with so much grace. And you are very articulate with how you carry yourself just in general. And that's really cool that you've gotten to do the Mrs. pageants. So you have done it a few times, right? And
Yes.
the thing about the Mrs. pageants that are different, I was in one pageant as a teenager, which I cannot believe, but because it was just kind of a crazy scenario, that whole pageant. But the thing about the Mrs. pageants is they do seem richer because these
Yes.
women are mature and there's not really, I correct me if I'm wrong, there's not really any age limitation. Is there an age
Right.
limitation?
No, I
And
mean,
so
you
there
can
are
just,
these women that have had children and, have been married or been widowed or been divorced and remarried. It's a richer life that these women have lived, a lot of them. I'm sure that in the Miss pageants, I know those girls have amazing stories as well, but there's something special about those Mrs. pageants because it's you going out and I really think it's stepping out there to do those Mrs. pageants so much more so than the Miss. So So tell me about those. And, like you said, wanting to sort of be able to advocate for something like pancreatic cancer and being able to have sort of a platform, you certainly have now. So what has that been like doing those Mrs. Pageants? And I mean, just tell us the nitty gritty. Because you have to like rock a swimsuit and do all the things. I mean, you have to have a talent.
Some of these you don't, and now some of them are coming out where they're like it's an optional thing, but that's thorn in my side that I kind of do want to be like, well, I still kind of want to do that. Like, and I started taking karate, American freestyle karate, in 2021. So it's been almost like 4 or 5 years with traveling and everything. I'm like, I'm probably only 2.5 years in, but I'm like, oh, I have a talent now, and I'm like, oh, how cool! And I have like the coolest instructors.
That would be like
That would be the thing.
That would be the thing that I would be like, oh, I don't know. I mean, that would be hard. The talent
It would be
portion.
hard. That would be hard. So I think the young miss in me that's still always going to be there is like, yes, we can do this. Let's do this. So I think that's part of that. That's just like, we got to do the check off the bucket list. And it pushes me to do karate better and ask questions. And maybe I'm like, maybe I can swing things on fire. Like, maybe, I don't know.
Right.
But it gets my instructors really excited because they're like, we're going to do what? And I'm like, we're going to do a pageant. We're going to do this kata to music. And they're like, I'm like, I was a cheerleader, but I love this. Let's do this. They're like, okay. So I kind of describe Mrs. Pageantry as like when you go to church and you're sitting next to the person and you go there because you're trying to work on your relationship with Jesus. And you don't go in there to be like, well, my relationship's better with Jesus than you. Like, you don't go to church like that. So I feel like in a way, the competition, when you go in there, like you're not really trying to compete with the person next to you. You're just trying to compete with you, and then you find camaraderie in all of these people because, like you said, they have such a story, or they bring something, or they're just a breath of fresh air that you're like, how do you meet adults right now? I mean, if you don't go to the gym and the grocery store, how are you going to make friends? I mean, it's really tough.
That's so true.
The university, I mean, it was so easy as a kid. So now it's just kind of a way as an adult to make friends. I have some of my most best friends that I would have never met had I not done pageantry. So I honestly can't imagine life without it now, because it's become this really cool, like almost like girls group where like, I don't know, you had old ladies in their Sunday brunch group. Like, this is probably how this starts. I don't know.
It's like a dance team or something. That's kind of how I feel about the honeybees. We did it years ago, but it was this group that you kind of feel like a family. So even I'm sure with the pageants, even the years that you don't participate in it, you probably still feel such a camaraderie, such a family with the women that participate.
Oh, they're like it's like you can't imagine not having. It's almost like a sorority kind of thing. I didn't do a sorority, but it's like that. It's a fun thing. And then you kind of have them once you follow them on Facebook, once you have competed with them, and then you know their kids and what they're up to, and that's kind of fun. And then they're in the background going, "Hey, are you going to do another pageant?" And they become your cheerleader, and you become theirs, and it kind of it almost takes a life of its own. I call these almost like women. There's just retreats for women. And at the end, one of us gets a crown, which is great, but it's really, you take away so much more. So I love the like competitive aspect. I need that sparkly carrot at the end of something to make me work hard. Like, I like that. Like, okay, we're going to
love that sparkly carrot.
We're going to do bikini. And if we're going to the gym all the time, well, what's our return on investment aside from feeling and looking good? But like, we got to put this out there and trophy hunt, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I've been with colleague racing too long, but I was like, oh, and then in karate, we win a lot of swords if you do tournaments. So this became this whole like crowns and swords chasing thing. And with my platform, the Wellness Warrior, that was like, it's kind of taken on its own little thing. And I kind of am along for the ride too. I love how it forms organically. And I think that's also where I feel like I'm just taking and picking up rocks and turning them over. And that's why I want to keep doing pageantries, because I'm just like, well, what's under this rock, or what's over here, or who might I meet or learn or connect with? Because it's not what you know, it's who you know. And now I have this web all over the country of all these women that in an instant I could have X, Y, and Z or X, Y, and Z. It's just like, ooh, it feels very operative. It feels like you have this army.
Yeah. Really cool. So you did not only pageants, but you also did a couple bodybuilding competitions, right?
Yes. So
I remember talking to you when you were preparing for one of those, and I was just like, what goes into that? And how long do you prepare for one of those? And then what are you doing daily? Like, are you fasting? What are you eating? How much are you working out? Do you have someone that is like guiding you through that? Because I think the mental load, like that is a journey just mentally doing one of those bodybuilding competitions. I've had a few friends that do them because you're hungry, you really got to cut, you got to do all these things. So, I mean, did you have like a coach help you get through those? And have you done, how many have you done?
So I've done two, and this year they came out with a new division, which I will be in. But previously, it was just called the
Wow.
bikini division, and in its inception, it started one way, but now it's really built to this kind of body style that I'm just not going to have. I'm not going to be able to eat my way to it and lift my way to it. My body is just not going to do it. And so I kind of was feeling actually a little bit sad because I was like, I feel like there's not a category for me to compete in because my shoulders aren't going to get big. I'm tall, so I can't build this X frame and I can't win. And I'm like, dang, I really just want to compete. And
Yeah.
finally, NPC, the National Physique Committee, came out with this new division this year, and it's called the Fit Model Division. And it looks a lot like bikini when it came out, where it was like this girl that's got some muscle tone, but she's not shredded in any way. Still has a lot of femininity to it, and you're not having to dehydrate yourself and diet yourself down to get the muscles. And I was like, you know what? That is perfect because I can live that lifestyle. And you can make it a lifestyle where you're not killing yourself to do it, where you're
Yeah.
trying to put on weight and now you're cutting and you're hungry and then you're dehydrating yourself and actually you're in your most shriveled form. So this, I
Right.
think, helped me kind of cut that out because with, again, all my food allergies, I eat really clean and healthy anyway. And it kind of gives me a reason to be like, okay, what is all this clean eating getting me? It becomes a way for me to make it fun because eating Brussels sprouts and broccoli and chicken all the time can be really boring. But if I know that there's something on the other side of it, it makes me more excited to eat all of that food. But I don't really love to
Right.
eat food. So this will help me eat less a little bit. But when you get closer, let's say like I would say 20 weeks out, you kind of start refining your diet. Like I love the air fryer and I put Whole Foods fries in there. I eat a lot of fries. I eat bacon. I eat red meat. But when you get closer to a show, you start tapering out the red meat because it's not as lean. And you'll switch your white foods for, like you say, your white potato fries and your white rices. You'll start cutting some of that out and you'll switch it for sweet potatoes. And it just kind of becomes like a refining so you don't lose the will to live and it's for a short time. And then you can kind of put those things back in. So that's kind of what it looks like. And then the owner of Iron Physique has just become such a good friend. He's my karate sensei. He's trained so many different people. He, has met Schwarzenegger and has tailored his whole gym after that. And I just loved him growing up. So I guess that's part of it too, is I just loved Schwarzenegger and just wanted to be
Yeah.
part of that. But I just always wanted to I always want to meet him. And I think it would be great to like be crowned by him. So I think that's part of just a weird pipe dream that drives me. But I do like to see what the body can do and what my genetics, what your body looks like and how you can kind of mess
Yeah.
with it. But I mean, that's the fun part. That it is hard because I for some reason get bone spurs and I have to go to the gym to work out. If I don't, I actually feel worse. So
Yeah.
this helps me. But this will be my first time doing this division. I have a posing seminar this weekend that helped me learn how to do that, which I really enjoy. And just we'll see
Wow.
how it goes. Like it'll be fun, but I won't have to be so cut. And honestly, my body is built enough. We're trying not to build my legs. We're trying to just refine little things. And that
Yeah.
kind of makes it fun. It's like an architecture project. It's like tweaking
Yeah.
something, or if you had a car, you took your car out, I'm like, instead of having the Ferrari, I guess I'll be the Ferrari and I'll tweak on myself.
I love that. Gosh, that takes a lot of discipline though. I mean, I commend you for doing that because that takes a lot of discipline. If I can get like 20 minutes in a day, that's what I work towards. And I'm not saying it happens every day. So through through that, you were doing, I remember we were talking in Daytona a few years ago, and you were pregnant. Had told me you were pregnant. You were like, 16 weeks or something at that point in time. And I was like, wait a sec, hold up. Because you were doing this competition and then you quickly got pregnant after, right? So tell me about that. Tell me about like, what was your journey wanting to have children? Did you guys know you wanted to try right away? I mean, did you conceive easily? What was that like for you? And then what was your pregnancy like?
So the funny thing was when I did that last competition that we were just talking about, my coach had brought me out and he goes, Tara, are you going to have kids? Because it's kind of a lot to do to your body and then you have kids. And so, if you're going to, your window might be closing. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And we kind of ended the show that way. Well, that was in November of 2022. Well, I didn't know at the time, but I was actually 6 days pregnant at that show and had no idea.
Stop.
And it's kind of
That's
a
so
funny
crazy.
story. I guess AJ and I, he never really said he wanted kids, but he wasn't like, I want kids. He was just like, and we both kind of just went for 10 years without any, just kind of just playing the cards, you know? I mean, we were just kind of careful and knew our bodies that well. And so we just were like,
Yeah.
good. Well, preparing for this competition, I got very lean and I thought, well, maybe I can't get my period or I'll be fine. And I messed up some of my days.
Oh,
And
God.
we
Yeah.
just kind of had a fun little outing, and got a little frisky. And I was like, it's fine. We got pregnant on the first try going, oh, it's fine. Because we had never really, not to get too detailed. So on our very first accidental try, we got
Were you a pull and pray method? Was that the
right? Yeah. So we had it figured out, and then I kind of didn't know if AJ could because the race car. He's been in a race car. He grew up racing BMX bikes as a kid,
Well,
and
and
then
there's so many people that have, struggle so much with infertility, especially in the racing community. So yeah, you're thinking maybe by the time we want to try to have kids, it'll probably take us a while. And then, so your one whoopsie daisy, you got pregnant.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. I mean, it really is quite incredible. If you really think how people try and they stress over it. And I was just like, well,
Absolutely.
you can't for some reason. And I'm too lean. So, well, try it. And I'm like, oh, so that's how Arrow came about.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, we both worked just fine. Oh my gosh. So we got pregnant. It was honestly, it was an amazing pregnancy. I knew he was a boy from the beginning because I got into the gym and I was lifting like I had testosterone. And I mean, even some of the guys that were like, Tara, are you going up on that? Are you sure? And then they'd follow behind me like, actually, it's kind of hard. And I was like, give me more weight. And I was just like, I wanted red meat that was like really super bloody and fatty. And I was just like eating and lifting. And I felt great the entire time. And like coming off that show and then building a baby. And I had all that momentum and already just kind of in it. I mean, I worked out just like I was training. I was building 2 bodies at this time. I ate like I was supposed to and trained the entire time and felt great and like never had a problem. We just kind of, you just make tweaks along the way because your stomach's in the way or you're getting very tired and winded or you don't need so much weight because you're 175 pounds. So you don't need weight anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it was so cool that I'm like, oh my gosh, people have to work out through your pregnancy. This will make it so easy. But then I was pregnant for 10 months. And then I was like, pregnant for 10 months.
Were you over 42 weeks? Because
I delivered at 44 plus 4. 44 plus 4.
That's amazing.
But I felt great the whole time. And I have a really long torso. So I had a ton of space, the baby had a ton of fluid. I had a midwife and I was going to the hospital. So I was checking everything. I had 2 ultrasounds a week and we would come out giggling because he was fine. I was fine. Everything is fine. And I went to the hospital.
To people, I'm so happy for you that you stuck to your guns and advocated for yourself because he was a perfect little baby and he was just 44 weeks, which, a lot of people, that 40-week mark, doctors will kind of start to scare you into all of these things that things will start to go south and your placenta won't last that long, where statistically it is so different than that. And so that's so amazing that you stuck to your guns and were able to advocate for yourself. And maybe you had a very supportive doctor, but there are so many women that they get to that 39-week mark and their doctors start going, okay, so next week, and they start planning inductions and things. So it's wild that you were able to go that far along. So then I'm a little obsessed with childbirth. So tell me what ended up happening. Did you get induced?
So I had planned, I really wanted to have a home water birth. Like I was like, I'm from Nebraska, all the pioneers, all these country women, they did it. Like, I am a warrior woman. I can do this. And I just was like, I just want to. I don't want to go to the hospital. I think if you can, you should try. I was like, we should try. We'll start here. And then if we've got to go, we got to go, and if you have to end up with this section, you do. But I want to start here. I'm just curious. So I I have this really amazing midwife, and she just was the most incredible person. Loved birth. Like, this is her like ordained thing. She is so passionate about it. I just loved her. And, we started with the hospital and did that too, just so we had records and just so we had options. And
Mhm.
I started not liking a lot of things in there though. So I kind of ghosted them. I was like, see you later. Like, I
Yeah.
just kind of knew. I was like, mm-mm. And so then I kind of just stayed with my midwife, and we did ultrasounds. And it's really interesting to learn that like a lot of people in labor and delivery and doctors, they do home births. They don't go to the hospital. And I'm like, so I was like, see, I
Right.
wonder why my feelings are this way. And it worked out
Yeah.
fine. There were goods and bad, but so we just kept going. My sister gets there. He's due August 7th. And this kid did not come till September 7th, exactly a month later. And my sister gets there
So
August 4th.
crazy.
She's in North Carolina with me for 3 weeks. We set up the pool, we set up everything, and we're just
Yeah.
waiting. I'm like, I do all of the castor oil. I've drank more castor oil than a person should. I mean, and all it made me do was just, and not go into labor. Everybody's like, it'll make you into labor. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to puke and crap myself to death. Like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. Doing the curb walking didn't work. I'd never wanted to be in pain. I'm like, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And like,
Yeah.
she had to go home, and it never happened. And I just kept gagging. I had Braxton Hicks for weeks.
Oh,
I would just gag, and nothing would happen. I think my body was just kind of tight, and so at 43 weeks, I went into a hospital we hadn't gone into without paperwork, without anything. I came in, I jumped and clicked my heels. I was like, hey, I'm 43 weeks pregnant, just to kind of test them to see what like they would do. They run their old tests. I didn't give them no paperwork, nothing. They're like, well, you're measuring and he's measuring exactly at 40 weeks. I'm like, from your mouth to my ears, okie dokie. I'm like,
yeah. Yeah.
I got one more week to try. And, they're telling me the placenta will die at 41 weeks. Like, it will die. And I'm like, oh, my
I
fear.
know.
We're already
Yeah.
there.
Right.
I'm like, okay, sure. So I'm just like, lies. But I'm like, appreciate it, the lies. So go home. And for a whole nother week, I do not go into labor. And I'm like, dang it. So my midwife's like, we tried everything too. We put balloon catheters. My God, I went through it. And poor AJ went through it too, because I think he was the most stressed out. He put on stress weight. Like he had a hard time, because everyone's like, he gets to
I
the track,
wondered that,
like,
because it's a lot as the person that can't do anything. And I mean, not that you can
right.
while being pregnant. I mean, you can only do so much, like you're saying, the miles circuit or the curb walking, any of those things, castor oil. But like your spouse is just really sitting there. Okay, when's this thing gonna happen? I mean, it's birth is such a wild thing. So you did a fully bulb, everything. You did all the things, and
Twice.
what ended up?
And so it
Wow.
ended up still just having to go to the hospital. And I was like, hey, I'm gagging a bunch, but nothing's happening. And I'm still jumping around. I mean, I was jumping up and down like, I'm good, And so
Yeah.
when I went in September 6th, which is actually my dad's birthday, which is kind of cool. Went in, and then they had to do the balloon Foley catheter. And they were like, it'll be only for like 6 hours. No, it was over 12. And they still had to help me with it. And like,
Yeah.
and Pitocin, and just, it was honestly awful. It's amazing. The brain doesn't really remember the awfulness. You just knew it was awful, but it
Right.
was awful. But I don't remember it being awful. I just remember it being long. So for 16 hours that went on, and then they finally were like, do you want anything? I'm like, I need epidural. And I had gone the whole time with nothing. And I feel like I had pulled on my muscles, and I was tired, and I couldn't like physically, I couldn't think through the pushing and the clenching anymore. And I went, I don't have anything else. Like, I tried to be as tough as I could. They were like, you made it to 9 centimeters that way. That's amazing. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, so like I had to get the epidural at the end. I wouldn't have made it. And I am certain about that. Like, I know that about myself. I don't beat myself up about it. Like, I would not have made it. And then it was a couple hours.
That's a lot to have gone through. I mean, sometimes too, you get that epidural and your body's able to relax.
You're just shaking, and you're cold. And at that point, you're just almost in shock. And I just kind of felt bad for my body. I was like, all right, we've been tough. We tried. It's okay. So the epidural really did help. We thought we lost Arrow for a little bit, though, because the epidural like dropped his heart rate. And then in an instant, there was like 11 doctors, and AJ is like crying, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And they're like, yell his name. And then he kind of came back. And then it was like, I didn't realize what had happened until after it, that we thought we lost him. And then everybody's like, it's all
after he came out, or while you were still pushing?
We had the epidural, and then the heart rate like disappeared. And so then there
Okay.
was doctors like everywhere as soon as the epidural set in that we thought we lost him and like couldn't find the heartbeat. They were like screaming at me, like yell his name. And I still was like, are you guys struggling with the computer? Like what's going on? I didn't understand what was going on until afterward. I'm like, oh, you thought he died. Okay, well that is bad. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
fine. I
that's
healed him.
scary.
Okay.
An epidural too
Oh,
can kind of, did you feel when you got your epidural that it kind of makes you feel
yeah,
drunk or,
heavy. Yes,
yeah.
heavy. You feel so heavy and you feel great, but you feel heavy that you're just
Mhm.
unaware in a way. And so you're kind of like, what? So I was just happy to like finally when the baby like came out, you're like, huh, there was a baby in there. This is amazing. Oh, we should do this again. And my husband's like, oh, are you kidding me? Why did we do this again? And my midwife's like, yeah. She's
Yeah.
acting as my doula. She's like, you could do it again. You could try it at home this time. I'm like, yeah. And AJ's like, never again. I am scarred.
Oh
Just
my
fine.
gosh.
I was like, but I feel like I earned every second of it. Like I was a distance runner. I always do things the hard, long way. And I'm just like, that's just how I am. I guess
Yeah.
that's just me.
You know what's funny too? I recently heard something. I actually listened to this podcast. It's called the VBAC link because I ended up having a VBAC with Captain and Bear. But anyway, on there, they were talking about how each of your children's births kind of model them as people. And so, won't it be funny if Arrow is just like you in that way that he does things the long and hard way? Like you're saying you do that and that was how your birth was. Won't it be funny if that's who he kind of ends up being and modeling that sort of style after you? I mean, my kids are so funny how they, if I look at how their births went, I'm like, they're just like that.
It's day one. It really is. And he is
Yeah.
day one. And he just screamed through the hospital the whole time unless I was holding him. And you can't sleep with the baby in the hospital. And he still will not sleep unless he is next to me. And I don't know how to break that. I'm trying, but he just tries to claw his eyes out and he slams his head and he'll try to choke himself. Like it's going to be his way or no way. And
Yeah.
this is him. And I'm just like, Lord help me. And he's going to be sassy and quick, smart witted like his dad. And I'm going to have nothing for it. I'm just going to be like, and I'm like, you're going to have to help me with him when he is sassy and older because I can't keep up with you guys.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh. Do you think you'll have any more or are you guys
I
one and
told him, I
done?
was like, look, I want one more. I love having siblings. The best blessings in my life. I have a sister and a brother, and I
Yeah.
especially couldn't have gotten through what we dealt with my mom without it. Like, I can't imagine losing my mom and not having my sibling to be like, you remember when
Yeah.
mom, blah, blah, blah. And I guess I think about that and I'm like, if I die, I kind of want him to talk to his sibling about it. Like, I don't know, and just all the
Yeah.
things. So I don't know. I hope so, but he is so difficult that it will be a hard sell. And it may just have to be one of those, like, cast it to the wind and just see what happens. Like, I'm doing another show in
Yeah.
November, so we'll see what happens.
Right? Let's lean down again and let's see how
Yeah.
that one goes this time.
Oopsie, my math was wrong. Like, I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, he's 17 months, did you say? Something like that?
Yeah, he'll be 18 months tomorrow. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a difficult age to then go, let's get pregnant and have another. We had a pretty good age gap between each of our kids.
Okay.
Oakley and Captain were just a month shy of 3 years, and then Captain and Bear are 3.5 years apart.
That's
We
perfect.
never anticipated that we would do that. We always thought we would have our kids like boom, boom, boom. My brothers had their kids really close,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't, it just, we were like, nah, let's give it a little more time.
Yeah.
Let's give it a little more time. And suddenly we're like, oh man, we probably shouldn't give this a whole lot more time. They're going to get too spread out. But honestly, now the age gaps are really good. I really, really love where they're at. I mean, they get along so good and they're just so
So
fun together. So tell me a little bit more about you and AJ. Like, what is your race weekend like when you go? And then what is your week like? And tell the people a little tidbit about your relationship with AJ that people maybe wouldn't know. Like, do what's a date night look like? And tell me a little bit about your guys' relationship.
Yes, date. God, I want a date night. It's tough. We've done
I
a
know.
few. It's tough right now, but when we do, it's like we can't wait to just eat and then just like we just want to hang out with each other. I think that like we can honestly, I love it that we can just sit next to each other, but we don't just say anything, and it's just so nice. Like I just want to lay on his shoulder and not say anything and just be like this veggie zombie. And like I get to do
Yeah.
that when I am with him. Like he just gives me this such calming energy. And I think most people don't think that about AJ. Like he's just this high strung guy and maybe he's just wound up like he can be. But with me, I mean, he really does truly like love me so much. And he worries about me and he just wants me to be happy. And, you know,
Oh, that's really sweet.
he is so sweet. And so it's usually like we'll just go out to eat and we'll hang out if we do. And it's just nice to just like chill in the car and listen to some music and we just talk and we'll giggle about like videos on the internet. You know, we just try to keep it like light and funny. We both, oh my gosh, not serious at all. And then like, I guess race weekend. So he has to be early. Get up and go. Like I was probably one of those people that was always like on time or like maybe 2 minutes late. Like, oh no. With AJ, that is not the life. Like you are at least half an hour early. So my life has totally changed. Sergeant AJ. So we like
that's how Ty is. I was like, oh, I'll trickle in. And he's like, no, we will be early to everything. You know, I think it's the fear of the times that they probably have been almost left. Like, I don't know if Ty has ever actually been left. Maybe I'll have to ask him. But yeah, I think that there's times where it's like, all right, he's not here, we're leaving. And like a person will literally have to get a different flight to go somewhere. You know, they don't do that. I haven't seen them do that in a very long time.
No, apparently like AJ said Roush almost like left him once upon a time. So I was like, okay, I get it. So we're there. Like very calculated and like the flight and everything's great. When we land, typically like the thing we really want to do always first, or if we don't have anything, is like we want to try to find Whole Foods or Sprouts or Wegmans. Like we both eat healthy. We want all the prepared food that they have. It makes race weekend so easy, but typically there's not a Whole Foods close, or if there is, it's like an hour away, but we will drive and we will find it. And like, that's kind of our fun outing, is to get in the car and get groceries. And like, we go figure out what we want to eat for the week. And
you got to tell me where you got all the Whole Foods, where they're at, or Trader Joe's or anything. Cause we always just do Publix, which Publix has a lot of great options, but you know, a Whole Foods or
it just makes it so much easier. It's just more fancy. It's just nice. Like they have the prepared foods and you just go and be like, here's the salad, here's this. And it's just, there's more options.
That's so true. They have all of the prepared meals. That is a great idea.
Like Pocono is now one of our favorite, because Pocono, there's Wegmans up there. And if you like Whole Foods, you love Wegmans. And like, that is just like magic when you go in there. And so like,
they have made meals, because like I love that about Whole Foods. So pre-made. Oh, okay.
If you love Whole Foods, you're gonna love Wegmans, especially in Pocono, because I know a lot of people take their kids up to Pocono. There's a lot of space to run. There's the dog park. There's the kid park. Like that's actually a lot of family one, even though we're all like Pocono as far as Pocono. But if you go to Wegmans now, it's like one of my favorite places to go, because we can't wait to land and go to Wegmans and get all the food, and then we get all of our food and our snacks and our drinks, and then we just take it all back to the bus. And then usually we just stay. Like we just kind of want to be like cozy and home, you know. We don't have a motorhome every time. We're renting one this year, which has been nice. It's the same one. So that is different than we have been. It's like staying in the hotel, moving around is kind of tough, but it's been so nice. So we like can't wait to get all our stuff, get in the coach, and like we'll take Arrow for a walk and we'll eat and we'll just chill out and watch some TV. And like we just like to be that like homebody at the track. We don't really want to go anywhere now that we're there, you know? And then like Saturday we usually chill. Sometimes we'll leave the track, but mostly we don't leave to eat. Like once we have gotten the food and we've come back, like once you're in, and we don't really leave again unless we really want like Dutch Brothers coffee, and there aren't everywhere either, but that is the best coffee. So if we can find like a Whole Foods and a Dutch Brothers, our weekend is completely made. And that's
oh my gosh, I love that. I'm gonna be like, hey, where's a good Whole Foods and a good Dutch Brothers at this one? I'm gonna be like texting you each time now. That is so funny that you guys like your first outing. It's different now with kids, right? Like you used to go out and do things, and now that we have kids, we're just like, we're pretty much in for the weekend at the track. Yeah. Do you guys, we were saying all like the prepackaged meals, but do you cook? I mean, do you like, either one of you like cooking? Or
I cook. AJ hates it, but I cook very like, I'll cook a bunch of chicken. I'll cook a bunch of bison. I'll cook a bunch of things where you can change it if you want to. Like I always have a big pile of bison with a bunch of like cabbage and stuff in it. And then you can put rice in it, or you can make air fryer fries. And I always have like bases, because I'm going to eat 3 or 4 times a day anyway. And I need that protein. So I always have like chicken or a rotisserie chicken from Whole Foods. And then I've got my bison or my red meat. And then we have Fresh Chef here, which I love Fresh Chef. They have the best salmon, and it's really simple because I don't really want to cook fish in my house. And as much as it costs, it's actually cheaper to just go get it from them, have them cook it, and you get two sides. So I'm like, well, honestly, that's
True.
nice. So we eat a lot of Fresh Chef just because I want the salmon. And then lately it's just been hard with Arrow to like cook as much as I used to, like for AJ, but he has had so
Yeah.
many stomach problems. I have stomach problems. Nothing sounds good to us, and we just have so many texture issues. We just have been struggling lately. I will be honest. Like today he's like, I'm gonna go get Ease, which is like
Yeah.
sushi and stir fry if nobody knows what that is. And like we love eating that. So I've been not lazy, but we just don't know what to eat right now. So I'm just like, do you want fajitas?
Yeah.
I'll just go get them. Like, do you want like it's just so hard right now. And I think it's the
Yeah.
weather and the time. Like, I don't know what we want to eat, but like in the summer, it's easier to grill, and then you have a salad, and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but I'll cook. I cook all my meals because of my food, so I'm constantly cooking. But for him,
Yeah.
he's like, I don't, or order me this. I don't really want to eat that again, or you've had that 5 times today. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna keep eating it. So
Yeah.
I like will just cyclically repeat things because being consistently average has helped me get and stay where I'm at. So I'm like, well, this works. I'm staying here, and I know Arrow will eat it. So
Yeah.
poor AJ, we just have to figure out what he wants to eat.
It's funny. I have gotten to this point where this year, which I mean, we're only a few races in, what I've been doing is just getting 3 packages of chicken and baking them. We have an oven in our motorhome, which is so nice to have an oven.
Yes.
I love that. So I will just bake like 6 chicken breasts and chop them all
Yes.
up small, and then I can make like chicken salad. Or
Yes.
I love that Primal Kitchen buffalo, the Primal Kitchen sauces.
Yes.
They have like a buffalo sauce, and I'll do that. I'll just like mix some of that in with it with some cheddar
Yes.
cheese and bake it a little. It's nothing fancy, but Ty eats it, loves it. It's easy for the racetrack. So like I'll make
Perfect.
a big thing of like chicken salad that he'll eat for the whole weekend, and then I'll do like some chicken for like a buffalo chicken. And anyway, I'm getting to that point now where I'm like, I've never really been a meal prep person, but it's becoming more and more.
Yeah.
And the kids like it too. So that's my thing. The last few weeks, the second I get there, our motorhome driver will grocery shop for us, and he'll get it set up, and so I'll have like 3 packages of chicken breasts, and I just bake them all. And I'm like, okay, I've got that off my plate, and
I like to hear that because I need to hear that from other people. Like, what do you do? And what are you making? And are
yeah,
you kind of like doing cyclical things? Because how in the world are you going to come up with something every time? I'm like, it is no way.
yeah. The one thing that's nice, and you are probably like us, is like Ty, he could eat the same thing every day. I mean, I want some variation, but he could eat the chicken salad every single weekend. Like
Yes.
you were saying about salmon, one of the things during COVID, Publix would make this pre-marinated salmon. They still do it. It's yummy. They do like a bourbon glazed something, and then like a brown sugar. I don't even know what they are, but there's a couple different types of salmon that they'll do. So during COVID, when I couldn't go to the track, Ty would bake that salmon and then just do, which like this is not great on the health spectrum, but just like a ready-made rice and microwave it, and he'd have salmon and rice when I couldn't be there.
Yep.
And I'm like, there you go. At least you got yourself a dinner. And
Yeah.
he would make that 3 race like every single weekend in our motorhome when none of us were there. I'm like, how's your salmon? And literally for like 30 races, he had salmon. I'm like, do you not get sick of the same thing? And then he'd come home and be like, you gonna make salmon for dinner? I'm like, are you kidding me? How can you keep doing it? It's so
That's
funny.
funny. So you're like AJ, and I'm more like him. Like I think there's one that can just eat whatever, and there's one that's like, no, we're not eating that again. So maybe that's just the balance of life, and I love it.
I know. We are like, it's so true what they say. Like one person, is a morning riser, one's a night owl, and then they marry each other. Like that,
Yes.
but in everything, we're alike in so many ways. But there are so many things that I'm like, it's just God's plan that it's just comical, that we are so different in some ways. So, do you and AJ have like? What's your nighttime routine? Like, do you guys have any funny, I always ask people, do you have any funny regimen? Does AJ sleep with a mouth guard? Like, what dorky thing do you guys have that nobody would know about?
Oh my gosh. We really don't now, well, because Arrow is so tough. We used to, but I think by the time, like, I am like a morning person. So by the time nighttime comes, like, I am ready. Like, sometimes I will just disappear because I'm going to lay down for a second and I fall asleep. Like, that's
Yeah.
been me
Yes.
lately. Like, sometimes if Arrow does kind of fall asleep, we'll go hang out. But like, he's like, okay, I've saved like 50 reels for you. I've laughed my butt. I can hear him laughing in the living room. And he didn't really used to watch videos all that much, but now he cannot stop. And like, it's animal videos. It's mostly Frenchies because we have a French bulldog and he's always watching these videos. Like, see, Zena's not the only one. They're all crazy. And so he
Yeah.
wants to show me all of these Frenchie videos that he's saved all day that he wants me to watch. It's usually the funniest thing.
Yeah. We do the same thing with the reels, and I'm just like,
Yes.
Ty will send me reels, but then he goes, "Don't watch them yet. I want to watch them with you because I want to see your reaction." Like, okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
open
like,
Instagram,
that's
I've
kind
got
of where
like
we're at. Like
50
with kids,
reels.
you put them to bed and then you just laugh, and then it's just like, okay, it's time for bed.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So, one thing I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people might go through this with their little ones. I was thinking about Arrow and how he had to have surgery. He has had multiple helmets. What's the journey been like for you guys with that? Is he done? Has he graduated from the helmets, or is he
So
gonna?
he graduated from the helmet in November, and this was a really interesting thing. So kind of going back to what we are talking about with like the birth story and everything, I had
Yeah.
hired a doula and I went through this hypno birthing class because I wanted to have a home birth. And one of the things that she went through, and she touched on it very briefly, but for some reason when she touched on it, it never left my body. And I don't know why, but she was like, the sutures in your head, so when you're born, your skull is flexible so that the baby skull can get through the birth canal. And I didn't know, but then like sometimes it can get welded shut, one of those, pieces around there. And I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. But I just had never heard that talked about, that the baby's skull is flexible and that sometimes one of those little flexible edges or sutures can get prematurely ossified or it can become hardened. And I'm like, that's really interesting because at like 35 weeks with Arrow, I kept feeling him, what I thought was like fall into my pelvis. And I could feel like the top of his head, like clunking into it. And I remember him coming out and me physically looking at his head going, is it okay? And it kind of had a ridge. And I'm like, ooh, I do think we've got something going on. Like, I didn't know that it was.
That you immediately had that
Like,
intuition.
I just knew. Like, I knew that was the first thing I was going to look at. And I remember looking at it going, oh, I don't know about that. And then even, everybody's like, oh, he's a newborn. It'll be fine. Still kind of watching the head. It stayed coned for a while. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And, we need to have somebody kind of look at this and talk to the pediatrician. She was like, meh, like everybody just kind of meh me off because if you do have this experience, what you're going to find is people, they're trying to be positive. They're like, don't worry, it'll work itself out. They're a newborn. Don't worry, which is very valiant. And that's nice. I wish though that there had been more follow-up in the hospital because I raised this and even the pediatrician that came in was like, yeah, maybe you need to have somebody look at this. But then that was it. Like, oh, okay, like help me. So if in that situation, you find yourself in that situation or you don't know that you're in that situation, your pediatrician will recommend you. And when I went in and we kept going in for our checkups and I kept saying, his face is shifting. Like I could see one side shifting and the other not quite right. He was such a cute little booger, but I would look at him and go, but this is weird. Like, what is his face doing? And you could start to see things change. And it's like, no, that's not quite, that's cute, but what is happening to my baby? And kept asking the question. I mean, I feel like I had to bang down the doors. And there's this place called Cranial Technologies, and they're all over the country. And a lot of kids that just maybe have like flat head or just a little bit of shaping, they don't have to have surgery. That's mostly what that is. They're all over. You can take your baby, your child, if you suspect something is off, to these Cranial Technologies and take them in, and the assessment is free. So you don't pay anything. You don't have to go through insurance. They'll look at your baby's head. And when I took Arrow in at 6 weeks, they're like, this is the youngest patient we've seen. We don't see them. And I was like, please just take pictures of him. Do your thing. And once they did, they're like, okay, we see why you are so adamant. Yes, you have concern. Send it back to my pediatrician. And then she recommended me to a world-renowned surgeon. He is just phenomenal, like different kind of guy. They're a surgeon, but learned so much from him and very thankful. So when we did find that, then what you really want to try to do, because of the way babies grow, especially up to like 4 months, is you want to find it like before 4 months.
Early.
Because it's really just pliable. It's quicker. They heal. They won't even know it. But after that, everything gets harder and the recovery becomes longer. So we were really up against the clock, and he had his surgery at 3.5 months, but it was just because I would call and get on cancellation lists. I'm like, can you please get me
Wow.
in
Yeah.
sooner? Because we were getting up to the holidays, and you know what happens when you go into November, people don't come out until the end of January. Sometimes you miss
Totally.
doctors. And I'm like, no, and so that was something that it's not as common like as you think it would be, I guess, but it's not uncommon either. Like it's like 1 in 2,500. So it's still quite a few. I mean, and
To
so
have
it's
surgery. I mean, you see a
yes.
lot of kids have helmets now, but to have surgery for it. So did he attempt a helmet and it just didn't seem like it was like at what degree did you guys at what point did you decide, okay, he does need surgery to have this?
So it was actually right away. Like they saw it, and when we saw that doctor, he was like, he knew exactly when he looked at it and what was going on. And so you have one that runs on the top of your head, and it's called the sagittal suture. And this is the most common, the one right on the top of the head. And they don't really know why these parts fuse prematurely. It could be an environmental thing, sometimes genetic. There is a genetic component, but it's kind of different. This one is just, this kind of just happens luck of the draw. And so I was like, well, I think his head was hitting my pelvis.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
what
he
I
got real
thought,
cozy.
that he had that, and so what happens is you do a CT scan and you see that it is completely fused. Like doing a helmet preemptively won't help. You have to actually go in and cut the bone out of the top of their head. So we had to go
Wow.
see a brain surgeon and this other surgeon, and we're sitting in front of them talking, and you just have the most awful thoughts in your head, and that they see this every day and it's great, but you are terrified.
Yeah.
And you're totally scared. You don't know what to expect. You take him into surgery. We think it's going to be all day. And it's like quick, easy. We go talk to the surgeon and we're like, is he in pain? Different things. And they're like, well, there's no muscles up here. So no, there's no
Right.
pain. There's no swelling. And I'm like, oh. And it
Yeah.
was just amazing how we went into it thinking this was going to be so terrible. He's a piece of his skull and his it really wasn't. And honestly, it's been the most easy thing that has happened with him. He's just difficult sleeping. He's difficult. Teething was terrible. Like the craniosynostosis thing actually wasn't that bad. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of scary and icky because you're like, oh, but that's the
How did
brain and the top
they
of the. So he has an incision that runs this way actually, and they did it
that way?
endoscopically,
Okay.
and then he was able, and then he had to
Oh, my
actually get relief.
flyaways.
Yeah, me too. And then they cut relief cuts into the side of his skull, and then reformed his
Oh,
head.
wow.
And you could see it instantly when he came out of surgery, even wrapped up. People were like, oh my God. It's amazing that what these people can do. The scarier part was like,
Wow.
you had to keep him on his stomach. He didn't want to sleep on his stomach just to help the swelling. That
Right.
was tough. And then you're scared because he wants to sleep next to you. And you're like, well, I want you to sleep next to me, but I'm scared I'm going to bang the top of your head because the helmet didn't come in for like 2.5 weeks. So that actually was scary. The
Yeah.
fact that like he is fine, is closed up, everything is fine, but underneath you could almost see like where there wasn't a big soft spot basically.
Yeah.
Which was it was just freaky, but everything was
Yeah.
fine. Everything went great. And then he went through 3 different helmets. The 3 helmets is that's more uncommon, but I just wanted to keep kind of working on it, and he did too. So we paid for 3 helmets.
Yeah.
Insurance doesn't cover it, FYI, but we, did that. And then now his head is perfect and he graduated. And so for anybody that's going through that, like we miss the helmet. We love the helmet. We're going to do more with the Cranio Care Bears. They send out little care packages to them because we did the little mohawk, and I'd love for all these little kids to have mohawks on their helmets and,
So cute.
all that stuff. And we've got a little bit of a platform called the Purple Ribbon Project. I'm going to try to do a little bit more printing graphics and just awareness, but it was just, how powerful these kids were. And, our understanding completely changed when we realized all of these different things. So now we have resources and all this different stuff that we can do for these kids. So I'm excited to kind of tell that story and make that a bigger thing. So the next time I go into a pageant, I'm like, also I have this and this, but the
Yeah.
interesting thing is that craniosynostosis is represented by a purple ribbon. And pancreatic cancer is represented by a purple ribbon. And I had always had a lot of animosity almost to that purple ribbon. I didn't want to do walks. I was almost mad. I'm like, instead of putting ribbons on stuff, let's take the stuff out. And I've kind of changed myself a little bit because it is camaraderie. Like we really do need each other when we go through these things. And I think that purple ribbon is more a badge of honor. So now it doesn't only mean pancreatic cancer to me. It's craniosynostosis and what we've been through. And it kind of is an interesting full circle moment, because when
Yeah.
you're born, you have all of your eggs. And so part of my mom carried arrow, and it's just sort of an
Oh,
interesting
that's
thing.
true. And that just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's so neat. In that pageant I did, I wore this dress that had a massive purple ribbon on it. And that
Oh,
today
wow.
is National Dress Day, and we always post something about our dress, but that dress really meant so much to me because it was kind of that down in that ugly part, and now it's that camaraderie, beautiful part that we can really help each other and talk about our stories. So that dress and the purple ribbon and everything, it's been interesting, and so I can kind of take all of that now and go forward and go, okay, I can advocate for all of these things, and I feel at peace, and I have a story, and I can stand and articulate myself, and I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to just tell my story because it matters and it's going to make a difference to one person. Then that's enough.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's so amazing. You are such a wise and beautiful woman inside and out. Getting to talk to you the more and more I talk to you, the more I realize, wow, you are so dynamic and there's just so much to you. I feel like we could talk for another hour.
I do too.
I just love hearing your story. I know your mom would be so proud of you and what you're doing. You're advocating for something or for so many things that are just really special, and you are helping people. I know you are. So it's just sweet too to see you and AJ, and it's cool to be teammates. I don't know. I just kind of love that. I think that's really fun, and I hope you guys have more babies. I'll be
Yeah.
here for you guys in that venture. And you guys are just really cute parents and fun to watch with Arrow. And for those listening, we get to fly together, and Arrow's always really sweet. And then we've got our 3 Rugrats that are just like our little guy right now. He is just so pumped when we fly. He just wants to he's not really upset or anything, but he just wants to get at everyone. And so it's just fun being able to fly with you guys. And it's like, oh, good. At least they have their baby too. So we're not the only
we're
ones.
not the only ones. No, you guys make us feel so much better. And I love both of you. And I've loved watching both of you build your family. And I love seeing the love you have for each other. You can see it. It shines. You can see it on TV. And I just think that is something that, I want everybody to know that there is real love and there is true family. And in all of this, that there's a lot of different things, but you guys are one of those strong core values to that. And I really appreciate and respect both of you for everything that you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, you guys, anyone that doesn't know you guys behind the scenes, we get to see you guys just being normal people. Like you say, we all have normal lives. We all have highs and lows that we're going through. So I do think that it's really beautiful that you guys, this podcast is called Believe in the Good. I do think that you guys are positive people. You are certainly such a positive person and such a light. And so it's really fun to have you on. Thank you so much, Tara. And we'll have to do this again for sure.
Absolutely. There'll be more pageants, more fit competitions, maybe more babies, or definitely more funny stories. So it's an ongoing thing, but thank you for having me, for allowing me to share my voice and my feelings. It definitely is cathartic. It makes me feel like I've been poured out and then I can be filled up again. So thank you. It's a refresh. Yeah. It is incredibly wonderful to just have that feel important and feel special and feel like you have the microphone and that people are listening. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, of course. And they really are. I know people are going to eat this up. So thank you so much. And everything that we referenced, I'll make sure we put in the show notes, and all of your pages where people can find you. I'll make sure to put that in there because you're doing some wonderful things. So this has been great. Thanks, Tara. I'll talk to you later.
Yes, thank you so much.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. I'm so grateful you spent this time with us. It means the world that you're here. And if you loved this conversation, make sure you check out the show notes for all the links and any resources we mentioned. I would love it if you followed me over on Instagram and YouTube. This is where I like to share things about my life, little tidbits about our family. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, the best way to say thank you is by sharing with a friend, leaving a review, and rating the show. It helps this conversation reach more people who believe in the good. See you next week.